Hey everybody, my name is David Schiff, and I'm going to be talking today about one of the most amazing things I ever went through in my life, which was bariatric sleeve surgery. I know a lot of you are wondering, what the heck is that? Well, we're going to tell you all about what the surgery is, but before that I want to give you a little background as to who I am and how I even got to contemplate doing this kind of seemingly drastic move in my life. Well, first off, I had been an athlete most of my life and had always been quite thin. As a matter of fact, through high school and probably college and even after that, I was never more than really 150, 160 pounds tops. And I'm 5'11", just so you know. I ate whatever I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. And I even did some really crazy things in my 20s and 30s. Like I started climbing mountains. I did glacial expeditions on Mount Rainier. And trust me, that's about as heavy duty as you can get. I played ice hockey, I danced ballet, I did all sorts of things that were highly athletic, and I played competitive racquetball. And trust me, you have to be in great shape for all those things. And I was actually in great shape probably up till I was about in my 40s. Now, that said, for a variety of reasons, I started gaining weight. I kept eating the way I always did, which was a lot of junk food. I loved my burgers, I loved my fries, I love my chips, I like my diet sodas, and I never thought about it. And as I would get slowly over time a little bit heavier, I started noticing that certain medical issues started creeping up with me, and that kind of scared me a bit. So it started off with high triglycerides, which is a kind of a blood sugar thing. And mine were really high. And my doctor said, let's cut back on the sugars and you'll be fine. But it ultimately grew till when I was in my mid 50s to late 50s that I started getting type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. And I started getting a tremendous amount of anxiety disorder. And as I got heavier, my anxiety disorders kept getting worse. But no one ever thought about that one was possibly connected to the other. We'll get to that later. It kept getting worse and worse for me. And then probably about, I would say, summer of 2018, I had gotten very heavy. I had gotten up to almost 280 pounds at my heaviest. I had very bad type 2 diabetes, and they were threatening me that it was going to go to type 1. My blood pressure was skyrocketing, and I was taking medication for that. Two medications for my type 2 diabetes. So as I got worse and worse and worse, eventually my one doctor said, look, you've got to start losing weight. You're getting heavier, your body chemistry is getting worse. We need to do something about it. Well, short and the long of it, I was talking to a friend of mine I was working with. I'll just say his name is Josh, that's his name. And Josh was telling me that that his wife had gone through a bariatric surgery, and he was about to go through it, kind of a his and her thing. And they were both very overweight. Now, when I looked at Josh, he was a very short guy. He's like 5'6" or so. And he was stocky, but I never thought of him as obese. And he told me about this, and so I started investigating about what this surgery was about. Eventually, that landed me to a guy named Dr. Barry Green. Barry is a top bariatric surgeon in the Montgomery County area. When I was with Barry, Barry had said after his diagnosis of me, he said, David, you are morbidly obese. And I said, morbidly obese? I'm not that bad. And he goes, no, you're thinking about that from a vanity perspective. I'm talking about it from a medical perspective. You have one or more diseases caused by your obesity. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, and other causal effects like that. Opportunist diseases, I might say. And I'm taking medication for those. So if I didn't have the obesity, I wouldn't probably have those diseases. That's a pretty strong kick in the butt when that happens to you. When I first met with Barry, you realize that going through the consideration of this kind of surgery is not something you just go and get done. There's quite the procedure you have to go through to get there, especially if insurance is going to pay for it. Mainly because the surgery has a lot of potential pitfalls if you're not careful about it. The surgery is a tool, but it's only a tool. You got to do three things really well. One, you got to eat better. Two, you got to exercise. And three, leverage the surgery. So what the surgery did for me is it allowed me to not ever be able to eat large quantities again. Now, You know when I talked to you about where I was a little bit scared about what could happen? My biggest fear was that physically I wouldn't be able to eat, but I'd feel hungry all the time. And I would get sick because I'd try to eat in my small stomach and the food wouldn't have any place to go, and you'd hear all those horror stories about that. Well, this is where we start talking about a little chemical in the body called ghrelin. It's a fascinating chemical produced by the stomach. Now, this chemical essentially is the thing that makes you feel hungry. When they remove the 80% of my stomach does not produce ghrelin near to the degree it used to. It's in minuscule amounts. So as I found out where I was worried about being hungry, I'm not hungry. As a matter of fact, I can barely eat 4 ounces at a sitting. And by the way, 4 ounces is what's in my palm, that big. That's not a lot of food. Now, the reason they call it a sleeve, as you can see, is what's left after the surgery is a sleeved shaped stomach, like a little tube with 2 openings on either end. The one end's attached to the esophagus it normally would be. Actually, they don't touch that. And the other one is the bottom of the stomach that attaches to the small intestine, or the duodenum, I believe it is. Now, they then take 80% of the stomach and cut it off and remove it. They then suture up or staple what's left of the stomach and make a new back end to it, essentially. And then they suture it. In my case, my doctor was a specialist in these hand sutures over and atop the staples to really make sure it was sealed well. This one I liked the most, but it still was so permanent and so scary to me, because with any surgery or something like this, what you don't know about on the back end is what scares you about what could happen. And that's called anxiety, right? And with anxiety, you worry about what could happen. And I was starting to worry a lot about it. And I also, honestly, for everything you've seen of me in the past and the pictures I showed you when I was fat, I never thought I was really fat. Not as fat as I realize I was now. Now, I'm 5'11", and my normal weight is probably around 180 pounds tops. I was almost 280 pounds. That's a lot. But as you go down the scale, you go from morbidly obese to obese 2 to obese 1 to overweight to normal weight. So I had quite the journey ahead of me if I wanted to get myself down. Now, we have to ask ourselves this question. Do we feel that we could lose the weight on our own? And I'll tell you, from my perspective, there's no way. Surgery took approximately 3.5 hours from what I heard. I heard the surgery went incredibly well, no complications whatsoever. And I was going to be in the hospital overnight, probably leaving the next day if there were no complications. As I was recovering, every day I would get on the scale and some weight would drop off. 2 pounds, 3 pounds, no less than a pound, every single day. I'd get up in the morning, I'd hop on the scale, and I'd go, wow, 280, 270, 260, 250, 240, 230. Can it be any more than that? And I started feeling better. Every single day I felt better. Now, there's some medication you have to take for the first 30 days afterwards, and you're on a very, very strict dietary regimen, which your dietitian puts you on. And it's okay. It's not that big a deal, but I never felt hungry. Never. But I was getting a little antsy about wanting to eat food as opposed to liquid food. And then after a short amount of time, they put you on what would be what's called a soft protein diet, like cottage cheese, or flaky fish or things like that. Then you eventually work your way into normal foods, but it takes a couple of months to 3 months to get there. The strangest, most overwhelming benefit of the surgery was right after my surgery, I asked my doctor, I'm on 11 medications. When do I start taking those again? And he said, you can just stop taking them. I said, Lipitor, the blood pressure meds, the type 2 diabetes, because yeah, you won't need them anymore. And I went, wow. Now, all that's amazing, really amazing. But the amazing part was about to happen. I had suffered from chronic anxiety for a long, long time, and it was getting worse with age. Turns out it was getting worse because of my obesity, not because of my age, not because of stress levels in my life. This was chemical. Turns out there's a thing called obesity-related depression. I had never heard of it. And by the way, all of a sudden, I did need something called clonazepam, which was my anti-anxiety pill. Every time I would have a trigger that would normally be one of those attacks, it didn't happen. And I started going, well, where is it? I'm always getting these attacks. Now I don't get them. And I called up Barry and he said, oh, I got a little surprise for you. That can also go away because of the surgery. And I said, had I known that, I'd have done this years ago. And I didn't know it. But guys, it's another part of this thing which can happen. And there's some very new science on the interrelationship between blood sugar, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and ghrelin, the chemical from the stomach. There's something there. I don't know how far along they are in their investigation on how this works, but I'm telling you, it was a miracle for me. Of all the things in my life, the fact that I don't have the anxiety of all the other things, the no more type 2 diabetes, the no more high blood pressure, no more sleep apnea. I can sleep on my back again. All that stuff were miracles in and of themselves. But to not have the anxiety in my life is the true miracle that this whole surgery had for me. It allows me to relax more, to be a nicer person, to be calmer, to be able to go out and do things that I wouldn't because I'd have panic and anxiety attacks all the time. This was the big deal. And so where am I right now? Right now, I'm sitting tight at around 197 pounds, 195 on good days, and I'll probably lose about another 10 pounds at the end of this whole thing. I'm on no medication at all, period. I'm done. And I hope I'll never have to do it again. So my life is so much better now. Now, you're going to ask yourself some questions about doing something as drastic as this. First off, you're not going to think that you're heavy. When you look at your weight, this is not about you physically or emotionally. You may not feel fat. This is about your BMI and how healthy you are. And if you are morbidly obese like I was, or obese, 2 or 1 category, you need to do something about it. And if you can't diet and do it on your own and exercise and stop eating badly, not drinking beer anymore, things like that, you need to take this under your advisement as you need to do something drastic to extend your life out. Matter of fact, one of the things Barry told me when he said, how much time do you think you have left? And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, you're almost 60 years old. How much time do you have left? And I said, I don't know, mid to upper 80s or so. And he actually said in a very subtle way, I don't think so. Now, what he was saying essentially is you may be lucky to get out of your 70s without having a stroke or I know there's horrible things that happen because of obesity. And he was right. So having a daughter, my daughter's 17, and the potential of being around her for a much longer time, at least for the stuff I know I can control, I've extended my life. And that's really important. It's important for my family. It's important for my friends. It's really, really important for me. I would tell you that one of the greatest compliments that I got was from my daughter. Every time I see my daughter, I always give her a hug. And she always gives me a hug. It's an important part of our life together. And this time, after I had dropped the majority of the weight, she hugged me and she goes, you know what, Dad? And I said, what, babe? And she said, I really like hugging you now. And I went, oh my God, in a way it was so sad. But when I would hug people with my huge belly on me, I had to kind of go around to the side. I can now bring people into me. So anyway, it was a hell of a compliment from my daughter. Other than friends just telling me, wow, you look great. Wow, I'm so happy for you. It's just a big boost in your life when you have all these positive things going for you. Now, what are some other positive things? Well, I got to tell you, my energy is friggin' uncontrollable. I'm stunned by the energy I have. I find I'm doing more chores around the house now. I want to do the laundry. I want to go take the garbage out. I like going to the grocery store. Why? Because I got all this energy and I want to go do things with it. And that part is really, really cool. Really cool. As a matter of fact, I should show you some pictures. So here's Josh before and after. Here's Patty before and after. And here's me before and after. Now, to kind of wrap it up here, I know this is a scary thing, and I want to make it very clear that I am not by any stretch telling you to go get surgery. But if you are in the position I was in, and you are morbidly obese or obese, and you're starting to get secondary things or diseases because of your obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, other maladies, possibly stress and anxiety disorder. It's a considerate option for you to think about. It's without question the best thing I ever did in my life. Well, with one exception. Adopting my daughter was the best thing I ever did in my life. I adopted her from China, and that was without a question the adventure to end all adventures. And it's a gift that never has stopped giving. But this was the gift that allows me to enjoy her more and be with her more. And that was very special to me. How much time do you have left? Ask yourself that question. That's a big deal. So, I want you to know I'm always here for you to answer any questions. But here's the bottom line with this thing. You want to make really, really sure that this is absolutely right in your heart, in your mind, and that you have great doctors around you. There's a lot of people that are doctors out there that are not necessarily great. So vet your doctors, talk to other people, talk to friends in the industry, talk to your primary care physician, and make sure this person is the greatest that there is. And if you got to go travel for that to find a better one, go do it. It's important. This person has your life in their hands. So you don't want somebody that's a hack. You want somebody that's a kick-ass doctor. And Barry and his son are kick-ass doctors. So for all of you out there, I wish you the best in whatever you decide to do. And if you go through the surgery, I hope that my little video here will help you with understanding the kind of things that you can do to make it all better for you. And again, I'm here for you if you need me. But best of luck to you with your lives, and thanks for your time.